Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up. This is the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life you absolutely love. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy will be joining us as she answers a number of common health questions after the commercial break. And one of them might just be your question, so stick around. Health is the first wealth. Stay with us. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that if you have questions that you would like us to answer on or off the air, you can email them directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. Also, if you feel stuck in an area of your life, whether it's financially or in your health or in your relationships, get into action, reach out to us. You don't need to suffer. There are answers and solutions and ways to get unstuck and move forward powerfully. Now, let's get to today's email. It says, Dear Fletcher, I am in sales and I have been for the past 18 months. I have several family members who are in sales and they make really good livings. Plus, they get to travel and they can work remotely. I was really attracted to this and thought that I could do the same thing. After all, how hard could it be? Well, I have to say it's way harder than I ever thought. I'm actually terrified when I have to make cold calls or go out and pitch to a prospective client. Other people in my office are making good money, and I want that, but secretly, I feel sick and anxious when I go to work. I'm not sure what to do other than quit and look elsewhere. Thanks for your help, Brad. All right, Brad. First of all, thanks for reaching out. Reaching out is a sign of strength, and that means that you are strong. And I got to tell you, I'm very familiar with what you are going through. I've been in sales most of my life. I started when I was in 6th grade and still to this day am involved in sales in my coaching company. When I was in 6th grade, I didn't know it at the time, but I was basically in door-to-door sales because I got on my bike and I was pulling my lawnmower behind my dad's 10-speed bike. One of my hands was on the bicycle handlebars, and the other was pulling the machine behind me. And I would go around from door to door, knocking on people's doors and asking them if they wanted their lawns mowed. And I remember back then, like you assess the door, you assess the house, you wonder if they'll say yes, and then you get up there. And before you knock, you're like, should I knock? Is this a mistake? And then I would knock. And the coolest thing happened. I put together a lawn mowing route in 6th grade and 7th grade. And it provided me lots of spending money. But it wasn't for lack of fear, right? I mean, there was fear involved, and yet I still was able to do it. But here's the cool thing. Each time I got a yes, my confidence level went up, right? So, and by the time I had a full route, I had lots of confidence, and I'd go back to that house, and they were on my schedule, and I'd take care of business. If I saw another house that I wanted to mow their lawn, I had a higher level of confidence and ability to go and approach that. So that each time I got a yes, I got more confidence. That's not to say there weren't no's. There were plenty of no's too, but I was focusing on those yeses. And I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know what I was focusing on, but that's what was happening. Now, here you are, you're in sales, you got to make phone calls. First of all, I want to tell you that what you're likely dealing with is the fear of rejection, right? There's 3 fears in life. There's a fear of not being good enough, there's the fear of failure, and there's the fear of rejection and or loss. And what you're probably dealing with is the fear of rejection. You don't want to pick up the phone because you don't want to get rejected or hear no, right? You want people to say yes. And when you hear no, you may be taking it personally. Here's what I want to tell you what I've learned about rejection in these past, 5, 6, 7 years, when I really got intentional about overcoming my fear of rejection. I did something called a rejection experiment. Because to play the game that I want to play in my life, I need to become a master asker. I need to be able to ask people anything and be okay with their response. And I realized that I had fear of rejection. And so to conquer that, I began playing this experiment called the rejection experiment. And here is the rules of the game. You have to make ridiculous requests of people, so ridiculous that the probability that they will say no is extremely high, right? The probability that they're going to say yes is extremely low. So here's what I would do. I would stand in a line, for instance, at a coffee shop, and I would tap the person in front of me. I'd tap them on their shoulder, and they'd turn around, and I'd say, hey, do you mind if I take cuts in front of you for no good reason? And so again, there's no good reason. I'm telling them there's no good reason to let me take cuts. They should say no. Now, let me preface this too. Each time I did one of these, I was extremely nervous. I was frightened. I was sweating. Can't say the other word. I was sweating, and I was shaking at times. That's how scared I was in some of these rejection experiments. But I went ahead and did it. And here's what I found out. The person who I tapped on the shoulder to ask for cuts, they actually let me take cuts for no good reason. And so I said, well, thank you. And then they said, would you like to take cuts in front of that other person in front of you? So here they are asking me this. Would you like to take cuts in front of her as well? And I said, sure. So I asked the person in front of me can I take cuts in front of you? And she had heard this conversation happening. Well, she was indignant. She was like, no, why would I let you take cuts? I said, okay, no problem. So after that, I got my coffee and I was going out and I saw them sitting over there and they struck up a conversation with me. They were so curious as to why I would do this that it resulted in having a conversation. See, one of the rules of the rejection experiment is that you can't tell people why you're making these ridiculous requests. Otherwise, it makes it easy, right? And you also can't be doing it to impress your friends who might be there with you. This is not this. You have to be out of your comfort zone when you do these experiments. So, but anyways, we had a great conversation. They thought it was fascinating. I thought it was fascinating. And what I learned through doing these rejection experiments was more often than not, people said yes. Where I thought they would absolutely say no, people were saying no. People were saying yes. And it resulted in a lot of fun. So I began looking forward and looking for those opportunities for people to reject me. That's a different way of going through the day, isn't it? Looking for opportunities to get rejected. Now, what I also learned is this. People are not rejecting me. They're rejecting the offer that I'm putting forth. Now, the offer may be poorly structured, or they may not have need of it. Maybe they've already got one of what you're selling. Maybe they don't want to invest in what you're doing because it doesn't work for them. What they're rejecting is the offer. They're not rejecting you. And when you can understand that, then you're going to be able to step into freedom. Because then you realize, oh, they're not rejecting me, just rejecting the offer? Oh, piece of cake. Now you can start making calls one after the other because you're no longer stopped by that fear. I hope that makes sense for you. Again, they're not rejecting you. They're just rejecting the offer. I also want to share this with you. I want to, and this may be of help. Marketing and advertising is the attempt to change people's beliefs with the intent to make a sale. That's what marketing and advertising is, right? It's the attempt to change people's beliefs with the intent to make a sale. What you're doing is sales. And sales is informing and overcoming objections. So if you think about this in your sales conversations, all you're doing is informing the person and attempting to overcome objections that they have either verbalized to you or not verbalized yet. If you can beat them to their own objections, that's even better. Now, before they say them to you, that's even better. But sales is informing and overcoming objections, and then closing is offering compelling reasons to buy now. I hope that helps you out because it certainly helped me out at a time when I really needed it. All right, we're going to get going on to a commercial break here, and then we're going to bring Amy on. Brad, thanks for writing in. Stay in action. Really look and see for opportunities to step into courage so that fear doesn't hold you back, Because if you are interested in sales, if you do think that's a great way for you to make a living, there are so many opportunities out there in sales. Just stick with it, get around people who are doing well, model them. You can do this, and I believe in you. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. We are here with Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, before we get into the health part of the show, I'm just curious, are you reading anything good just in your personal life?
I am listening to a book right now while I'm driving on the Wright brothers. It's called The Wright Brothers by David McCullough.
Okay.
And it's really cool. And I learned the thing that I think was really cool, two things. One was about when the regular bicycle became more popular, it was like everyone was worried about the morality, what was happening, because kids could get far away from home really quickly and they weren't reading as much. So it reminded me of what we talk about the phones these days. It's like back then in the late 1800s, it was the bicycle. And they had a cool thing where the brothers, Wilbur Wright only did 3 years of high school. Orville did complete high school, but neither one of them, they were both one was in his early 30s, the other one was his late 20s. They just, this airplane thing it wasn't like they'd been working on it their whole lives. They started late.
Yeah.
So it was a cool story.
That is a cool story.
Yeah.
I like that. Those dang bicycles.
Yeah.
Taking our kids away from what's important.
Right. What about you?
What am I reading?
Yes.
I am reading a cool book. Cool is not even describe it. A very powerful and impacting book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I love it because we do spend so much of our time in the future and in the past, in our minds,
Yeah.
And this is something I actually talk to my clients a lot about. Neither the future or the past exist, but we spend a lot of time there, and we have a lot of fears about the future, and so we stress out about that. And it's just such a crazy concept to think that I'm stressing out about something that doesn't yet exist.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's a powerful conversation about how to spend more time in this moment that's actually real and actually happening.
That's good. I know we talked about if you focused on who you wanted to be during your day as the number one versus what you had to do, it'd be a really different day for both yourself and your family and your coworkers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now.
Yes.
You can get that on book or tape and listen to it or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's not really tape anymore,
It's
just
not
so
really
you know.
tape.
Yeah.
All right. But you know what I mean. All right, let's get to it. So what are we talking about today?
Well, what we decided to do was look at the top Google searches for health.
Yes, for 2018. What were some of the top Google searches regarding health? So I'm
going to be kind of Google.
All right.
And you're going to be the person.
All right. The first thing that people were searching, it said...
The top one?
Yeah, the top one, it said, what is a keto diet?
Yeah. So these questions I found a little bit humorous. Well, not humorous, but that's a long answer.
Yes.
So I'm not going to give you a long answer. I'll give you, it's not necessarily a simple answer to that question because people mean a lot of things about it. But in general, when you talk about the keto diet, it refers to a ketogenic diet, meaning a diet that generates ketones in your body and you have a high level of ketones. And so this is a diet where someone consumes little to no carbohydrates. And so without any carbohydrates, your body is going to be using fat that you're either eating or that's in your body to make energy. And as a byproduct of energy that's made from fat, your body makes ketones. And people can actually also take ketones. That's another whole other topic. But the benefit, there's lots of supposed benefits, and I'm not going to comment on those. I don't really know the research on that necessarily, but it's potentially good for cancer, either reversal, cancer prevention, and Alzheimer's are kind of the top things that it's been talked about. So ketogenic diet is basically a very, very low to no carbohydrate diet, high fat, and where your body's making ketones.
Got it. Lots of plants.
Yeah, it'd be lots of plants and lots of fat, so in the form of animal products, also avocado, nuts, seeds, that kind of thing. You could either do it plant-based or not plant-based.
All right, good. Okay, moving on. Number 2 is, what is ALS disease?
Yeah, so ALS is a devastating disease. It's short for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. That's what ALS stands for. It's also called Lou Gehrig's disease. It's one of the most devastating things I've seen. Actually, I had a patient die from it earlier this year, and she was, not very old. It's usually diagnosed after age 50. So it's a degenerative process in the neurons in your body that affects your voluntary muscles. So voluntary muscles are things that you can command to use versus like your digestive tract. So your hands, your legs, that kind of thing, your skeletal muscles. So the person would start off with maybe some nonspecific muscle weakness, and then it progresses over years, usually, sometimes months, to that where a person is unable to breathe any longer because of your chest wall muscles, actually. And so either someone gets put on a ventilator or they die.
That's right.
And so the part that's maybe good or bad, depending how you see it, is the person's brain isn't usually affected. So they're alert and completely cognitively intact throughout this whole process. The book that many people have maybe heard of or read is called Tuesdays with Morrie, and that was written from conversations of a man who was dying from ALS. So he was very cognitively aware the whole time. And the other one that we know a lot about is Stephen Hawking's. So he had a slightly different variant, as you could imagine, because he was diagnosed at age 21 and died at 76. So he had kind of like a juvenile onset, and then it also progressed really slowly. But that's also what he had. So his brain and his ability to think obviously was still there, but his body wasn't.
Okay. So a quick question, maybe you know the answer to this, maybe you don't, but so these are like these are the top searches for 2018 around health topics. Why would that one be?
I don't know. That surprised me.
Is there like a spike in ALS or?
No, not that I know, not that I've heard of. I don't know why that one surprised me.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one is, what is endometriosis?
Yeah. So endometriosis is kind of, again, these are kind of complicated answers to these questions, but it only happens in women. It's a condition that only happens in women. And we don't really understand why it happens, but what happens is that the tissue that's normally only found in the uterus gets out of the uterus and into your pelvis, so inside. So it therefore can kind of land and therefore grow on the outside of the uterus, the ovaries, the intestines, the wall of the pelvis. And so the weird thing about it is that when a woman is cycling, like on her period, the same thing happens to this uterine tissue outside of the uterus as it would in the inside. So it actually can cause swelling of that tissue wherever it is, and then bleeding of it at the time that a woman would normally have her period. So it's not fun, and it doesn't feel good for women. So the symptoms can include really painful periods, heavy periods, inability to become pregnant, painful intercourse, and chronic pelvic pain. And it's kind of a hard one to treat as well. So anyway, it's not that's like two bad ones in a row there.
Yeah.
ALS and endometriosis, two things I wouldn't want to have.
We have this amazing machine, our body, and with it comes like these incredible
sometimes things go
diseases
wrong.
And stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another question. How long does weed stay in your urine?
So I assume they mean marijuana by weed.
Yeah.
So THC is the chemical in marijuana that makes people feel high, and that's what we test for when we do drug screening. So the big picture is that it can be in your urine for days or weeks. The length of time that the THC stays in your body depends on how much fat a person has, because THC is actually gets bound to fat, and so it can be stored in your fat cells. How often you're smoking, obviously, or using it, ingesting it, and then how sensitive the test is that you're using. So, but on average, the research suggests that if you smoked one marijuana cigarette or joint or whatever you want to call it, it would be detectable for about 3 days.
Got it. Okay.
At least.
All right.
Potentially longer. Okay, so quick commercial break, right?
Yep, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Stay with us. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. We're talking here with Amy, and we're talking today about some of the top or the most popular health questions that were on Google for 2018. And the next one that people were asking is, how long does the flu last?
Yeah, so usually people that have actual influenza, which we've talked about on the show, the difference between the flu and influenza, it usually have a fever and you're sick for a solid 7 days. So it may take a little while to get better because people are frequently in bed for 7 days, like can't do much. So you might have to recover for a while after that, but you're generally sick for about 7 days.
Do people need to go to see their doctor when they have the flu, or can they just wait it out at home?
They can just wait it out as long as they're low risk. I think we did a whole episode on influenza, but yeah, I mean, if you're not a high risk person, you're not very young, very old, or have any lung disease or anything else, you could just stay home.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this one. A lot of people were Googling, why am I always tired?
So that one, that one's funny because that's like, who knows? It could be so many things. So that list would be really long. It would include things like stress, depression, poor sleep, medicines you're taking, non-prescription things you're taking or using, anemia, problems with your heart, problems with your liver, problems with your kidneys. So bottom line is I guess you could Google it and start there and try to understand what it might be. Or I forgot to say thyroid, give you another thing, but you should just go talk to a healthcare provider and then they could help narrow it down for you.
Yeah, that's a pretty general one.
Yeah.
I forgot one. How long is the flu contagious? That was another common one.
Yeah, so we don't have an exact answer for that, but for sure someone's contagious with any illness, with any respiratory illness, as long as they have a fever. So if you have a fever, you're contagious, and you're considered contagious for at least 24 hours after your last fever for any kind of respiratory illness.
Got it.
Generally for the flu, again, we would say 5 to 7 days. The flu is spread through droplets in the air, so basically in your saliva.
Mm-hmm.
So people that are sick, they either sneeze or cough, and then this, saliva moisture comes out of your mouth, or not just saliva, also stuff from your nose, and it contains the flu virus. And then, so these little droplets are either in the air that you're breathing, or you can also touch a place like a counter or a doorknob, and then touch your face or a phone, and the virus can live for up to 48 hours if it's not cleaned off on a surface. So
Really?
people are like, how did I get this? Like, who knows? Like, you could have been so many places.
Well, it can live 48 hours.
Yeah.
So then you touch it, wipe your eye or something.
Yeah. Or your nose, yeah.
Dang. All right, last one is, what does heartburn feel like?
Well, I thought you could start with that one since you've had it.
I've had it. It feels like kind of a burning sensation in this region here, and tight and burning. It's the best way to.
So usually, it's described as like a burning sensation. I've had it as well in your central chest. Sometimes it's accompanied by a bitter feeling, a bitter taste in your mouth, because it's actually like stomach acid, contents coming up a bit, and you can taste it. So it usually happens, after eating or laying down. People can feel it a lot in the night or when they lay down. So that's kind of the common symptoms of heartburn.
Right, and isn't it? I mean, the acid is actually burning like the lining of the esophagus or something?
Yeah, it's actually burning the lining.
Or irritating it?
It's irritating it. Yeah. The cells in your esophagus are not meant to be exposed to acid. There's a tight sphincter muscle at the bottom of the esophagus before you get to the stomach. The stomach cells are just completely resistant to acid. They want acid, they like acid, they do all their job with acid present, but not the cells in the esophagus. So it's irritating to those cells.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Good, fun information.
Yeah.
And looks like we're out of time. So it's time now to get out there, be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You have something this world needs, you matter, and we believe in you.